This is David.
David.
I was wondering if you might clarify that reference to Torah law. And the reason why I'm questioning that is because as Mike in Florida has up on his website with the that declaration, he made reference to the USS Liberty being, an Israeli invasion of the USS Liberty. I've been researching that for reasons I can say later on, and how the Israel, is the Torah law that you're referencing is post New Testament, and so can you explain that a little bit further?
I don't know, David, where you're getting your frame of reference for your proposition that Torah law means post-New Testament. The context where I referenced Torah law was quoting Mr. Blackstone, said that the common law of the Anglo-Saxons was based upon the Torah laws of Israel. That specific quote referenced Exodus 18. Torah law is commonly considered those first 5 books of the Bible in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and that's usually considered Torah law. Although similarly as common law, there are definitions of Torah law that means that it's the universal principles of law. But that's a digression. Generally speaking, it's Exodus 18 is the Torah laws that I was referring to, if that might clarify your point.
No, actually, I was just thinking that if we're talking about just prior to the Norman conquest, and we're talking about England, I guess I'm questioning the reference to the Israeli Torah law. Are you saying that at that time that the Israelis were in England at that time, or help clarify that?
Sure. Mysteriously, somehow and their deep level research can reveal the answer, I do believe, but the laws of Israel, Torah is usually referred to the books of the law, and that's the first 5 books, and that's 3,400 years ago, back when Moses was doing stuff. And Mr. Blackstone wrote in about 1750 that the common law of England is based upon the laws of Israel, and he specifically cited in support thereof Exodus 18, which is the Torah law. Blackstone didn't use the word Torah law himself, but he referenced what is commonly recognizable as Torah law. If that answers your question, I yield.
Well, it answers it in part, in that I understand what the reference is to the first 5 books of the Bible. What I'm trying, and I've just been doing this in the last couple of days here because I've gotten an opportunity to be working with the people behind the exposure of what happened with the USS Liberty. There's been a documentary done on it, 4-part documentary, and there's I've had a screenplay in my possession for at least 2 years, and it might come to fruition. So I've been researching the history of the Israeli movement and Zionism, and and where the Israelis, and Israel as a state in the Palestinian location. And I'm just trying to figure out if, prior to the Norman Conquest, if there was Israeli communities established in England at the time, and I haven't heard you address that yet. I yield.
Thank you for focusing more tightly there, David. It's like Chris was saying. It's important to get our vocabulary and our terminology correct. What was created in 1947 wasn't Israel. It was a sock puppet look-alike of Israel to posture and pretend. It's de facto Israel. Is probably the best way to label it. And
here.
Thank you. And similarly, the Pharisee Jews, they plug into Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9. They're the community of people that say they are Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. They're de facto Jews. They're pretend Jews. They're legal fiction Jews. And so, thank you. When we're talking about Israelite Torah law and how it's part of our Anglo-American common law tradition, we're not allowing those deceptive Pharisees and their fake state of Israel that was created in 1947. We're not adulterating our conversation with giving them any legitimacy whatsoever. Christianity is the legitimate Israel. Okay? Those Pharisees, those Christ-denying Pharisees, they're not legitimate Israel. They don't keep the peace. They're money-grubbing money changers. They're the ones that the true king of Israel kicked out of the temple. And that's part of why the battle continues on. I just reference Israelite Torah law and things like that because it's all part of the spiritual battle. We gotta cut the enemy off at the knees. See, they'll come in and they'll say, "Well, we're Israelites." Even Mr. Trump. I know we probably got a few Trump fans here, but he's breathing into the fiction that those guys are real Israelites. That somehow the United States of America should support that de facto Pharisee Christ-killing community of fake Israelites. So did I clarify at all more there, David?
I might be able to add a little bit.
You did, and then some. Thank you. You did it with passion. So let me put it that way. Thank you.
All right, somebody else there?
It was just Chris. 1666, a fellow that we're told his name was Zabbatai Levi or Levi, could have also likely been Shabbatai Levi, wrote Redemption Through Sin, claiming that since we couldn't be perfect beings, then we might be perfect sinners and achieve redemption through that process. Total preposterous nonsense, but if you can give people license to do whatever they want to do with no consequences, it's certainly easy for them to adopt it because of their own self-interest and self-lust. Also, the Shabbataians or Shabbaltians, who the wolves in sheep clothing were very well known for, and of course that was also the moniker for the Mossad, is because they're always portraying themselves as something other than they are. And that's how they infiltrate and take over from within. And of course the enemies from within are far more dangerous than those from without. We've learned that over history. And with that, I think I probably leave this go, but it's just, this is such a deep subject and it's been so convoluted and the falsities have been replaced with the truth. It's very difficult to discern what's really going on, but only through the spirit of discernment and prayerful Inquisition, are we able to make any sense out of some of this nonsense, in my estimation?